Okay, we're here today with Gary Raucher, Executive Vice President of Category at ASICS EMEA. Gary, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Well, it's great to have you on. How have things been for you, during lockdown? Obviously, it's unsettling for all of us. How has it affected you?
Well, I mean, it continues to be tough times. You're first and foremost concerned about the health and well-being of your family and friends, your loved ones, but obviously of all of our employees, of our retail partners, of our consumers. And so we've done a lot of things to make sure that everybody is well taken care of and their health and well-being comes first. At the same time, it's been very busy for us. This is the time of year that we are talking to our retail partners about our Spring/Summer 21 collection. So we're busy launching new products or having conversations about new products, and we're busy trying to adjust all of our marketing tactics to adjust to the situation in the world at the moment.
Yeah, it must have been a profound impact, because I suppose you had the advantage with Japan and Southeast Asia in general picking up things sooner, so you probably had a bit more of an advance warning. But has it had a pretty profound impact in terms of trading and the way the business has been running on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we see that there are big differences by product category and also by market. I mean, obviously, if you start with the market perspective, the difference between Northern Europe and Southern Europe has been extreme as far as the level of lockdown and people's ability to participate in sport. Fortunately, in Northern Europe, most countries, people were not only allowed to go out and exercise, but were encouraged to do so. And so we've seen a much more negative impact in Southern Europe than in Northern Europe. But we also see big differences in categories. Sports like tennis, for example, have really been hit very hard because Spring/Summer is the moment when people tend to buy all their new tennis gear, and yet no one in Europe has been able to play tennis. Whereas running, on the other hand, we notice that more and more people are discovering the benefits of running, and we actually are experiencing a bit of a running boom. And so the running category has actually benefited from the fact that more and more people are interested in not only their physical well-being, but also their mental well-being. And you also have seen that a lot of people that tended to do other activities but haven't been able to are turning to sports like running.
Yeah, it's like the classic doorstep sport, isn't it? That you can kind of walk out, step out your door, you can get fit, and as you say, when you're permitted to by government, it makes things easier. So maybe we'll come on to that a bit later, because with this sort of series, we're trying to sort of come up with some positive news. I think that's possibly the most positive news item that we've got during these distressing times. That, as you say, there's looking like yet another running boom, which is just fantastic. And I think that's fantastic for all sports as well, of course. Because obviously running might migrate to, runners might migrate to triathlon or indeed other sports. So yeah, as I said, when we come on to that at the end, I think that might be quite useful. So what would be also really interesting to discuss is what's been going on at ASICS, because we've just seen like a ton of innovation coming from you guys, which I think is fascinating. So spidersilk, I really want to hear a bit more about that. That sounds fascinating. There was also the PET bottles into run shoes. And as well as that, you did there was a virtual innovation lab as well, wasn't there? So maybe kind of talk a bit through those, if that's okay.
Well, I think that innovation is at the core of who we are as a brand. And I think when we look at innovation, I think there are two ways that we approach it. The first is, as a Japanese brand, Kaizen is very important to us. So the idea of continuous improvement. It's why we're about to launch the 27th version of our Gel Kayano shoe, one of our legend shoes, each one of those versions better than the one before. So we're constantly looking to see how we can possibly improve. But next to that continuous improvement and incremental improvement, we also look for breakthrough innovations. I think what binds the two together is that all of our products and innovations go through our Institute of Sports Science in Kobe, Japan, where we really spend a lot of time trying to understand human movement. So we never develop technology for technology's sake, but we develop technology that is really insight-led in trying to address basically the basic needs that humans and athletes have, both to reach their potential, but also importantly to avoid injury. And so we have had some very exciting innovations recently. You mentioned the virtual summit that we did. This was going to be a big in-person press event, but obviously because of the situation, we had to shift that to a virtual event. And at that event, we launched 3 products in our Meta series. We call them Meta series because it really are the pinnacle products. There was the Meta Racer, the Meta Rise and the Meta Sprint. The Meta Sprint has just won a very prestigious innovation award. And not only is there great innovation in the products themselves, but also how we brought it to market through a virtual summit that was supported by augmented and virtual reality, I think was, really true to the core of who we are as an innovative company.
Yeah, yeah. So can you tell us a bit about the spidersilk then?
Yeah, well, so sometimes, obviously a lot of the innovation we tried to develop in-house, but we were also always looking at the marketplace for startups and for new technologies. So it's an acquisition that we recently made, or an investment that we recently made. It's based upon a technology that was developed with 10 years of research at Hebrew University in Israel. And essentially, it's a highly sustainable, biodegradable fabric that still has the properties of really high strength and elasticity. And sometimes there's a trade-off there. Obviously, sustainability is an important topic for all brands. We have quite ambitious sustainability goals that we've been not only pursuing, but exceeding every year. But this for us is really going to allow us to leapfrog where we can reach those sustainability goals without sacrificing the quality of our products, because we are a performance sports brand and we need to make sure that our products are delivering the benefits to our athletes. And this is just a great technology that we're really looking forward to partnering with them and then integrating this new technology into future lines of apparel.
Got you. Now, and I suppose go back to also your other point about continuous improvement. Am I right that you have an anniversary coming up? Is it Founders Day? Is that correct?
That's right. So it's actually every year on the birthday of our founder, Mr. Onitsuka, which is actually on the 29th of May, so this coming Friday, we bring the entire company together to remind everybody of our history and of our roots. I like to say that the strongest brands find their fruits in their roots. And it's really important to go back to your heritage and your history to understand your core DNA and your core purpose. Mr. Onitsuka started the company at a time of adversity. The company is 71 years old. He started ASICS in the aftermath of World War II, when society actually had lost hope. I think that there was a lot of stress, there was a lot of anxiety at the time, and he recognized the power of sport to transform people's lives. Not just the physical benefits of sports, but also the mental benefits of sport. It's why our name, ASICS, is an acronym for the Latin Anima sana in Corpore Sano, which translates into a sound mind in a sound body, which remains our philosophy today. Now, a lot of people don't know that ASICS is an acronym. A lot of people don't know that ASICS is a Japanese brand. And what we try to do on Founders Day is make sure that everybody internally understands the core essence of the brand. We're a caregiver brand from Japan that believes in a sound mind and a sound body. And we really now want to dial up that communication, not only internally, but also externally, because we think that it's a very powerful differentiator for ASICS, but we also think it's incredibly relevant at this moment of time when the world is again dealing with a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, the crisis is so profound, and that post-war analogy does, as you say, give us the hope that good things can come out of adversity. And I think that you certainly summarised that. I suppose if we think about business and the economic adversity that we're about to face, because I think everybody is fairly convinced we're going to hit probably a depression of some sort. Do you have any advice for anyone currently thinking about making the leap and setting up their own business, or getting into business with others? Obviously, ASICS has had the 10-can-10, is that correct pronunciation? The accelerator program, obviously based out of Spain, where you bring in young startup companies. Is there anything that you've seen from that initiative in particular, or just in terms of your own business experience that you think would be useful to share for anybody worried about making the leap at the moment?
Well, I think the common thread, whether you are a startup or if you're a large company, is always about focus. I think that it's really important, and we certainly see it with startups that we work with, but also within our own company. Insight-led innovation is incredibly important. So it's not innovation for innovation's sake. It's not technology for technology's sake, but it really is starting with understanding who your target audience is, what is the unmet need in the market, and how can an innovation actually address that need. But so there is focus on sort of your product development and your innovation roadmap, but also the focus comes from really defining what is it that you want to be famous for? What is the one thing that makes you different, and preferably better than everybody else in the market? And we've seen that with some of the startups that we worked with, but also if we look at our own experience, I think that the sports category is a sea of sameness. I think that most of the brands in the category all look and sound and feel the same. And that's why it's so important for us to go back to our roots, because we do believe that as a caregiver brand from Japan, we truly are different from others. And I think that's also one of the benefits that we have experienced from this crisis, is that it has forced us to focus. It has forced us to go back and say, you know what, we are a performance sports brand. We are a caregiver brand. We are a Japanese brand. We're all about a sound mind and a sound body. And I think that by doing that and renewing that focus, it makes us stronger, not only during the crisis, but also for the years afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that phrase, sea of sameness. That's fascinating. So essentially differentiate. It's so important, isn't it? As you say. You mentioned, let's get back to what we talked about earlier, the running boom. I think that's kind of fascinating in terms of how this crisis might play out for the industry. Because as you know, the industry itself has been dealt a major blow, particularly because the ecosystem being connected with events. And if there are no events, obviously you guys obviously sponsor events, you involve with events. Pro athletes need events in order to earn a payday and so on. With the market being in this sort of state of limbo at the moment, are there any thoughts that you have about how the industry can weather the storm, how we can come back stronger? Do you think it will be led by running? Do you think that will be the way that we can hopefully push beyond where we currently are?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I think, first of all, I'm reminded of something that my grandmother used to always say to me. She would say, "This too shall pass." And I think that it's important for us to remember that this is a moment in time. And it may not be until there's a vaccine, but there will be a vaccine at some point. And at some point, we will have big organized events again. So I do think that there will be a post-corona crisis where there will be some sense of normalcy again. At the same time, people talk about the new normal. I do think that the acceleration to digital, the acceleration to virtual events is here to stay. And I think that it's important for the industry to also think about, even in a world when we will again have physical events, how we can provide great experiences, both to participants, but also to spectators in a virtual environment. Because even now, as a number of running events have been canceled across Europe, we've been quite active in doing virtual marathons, virtual running events, virtual races with people, just so that people's passion for the sport and excitement around the sport can remain, even in times when we're not physically together. But I do think that running, you mentioned it before as being maybe the stepping stone into other activities. I do think that the running boom is here to stay, because we see a couple of things. We see, first of all, there are people that are picking up running because their other activity hasn't been possible, whether that be going to the gym, yoga classes, even playing tennis. And even as those facilities open up, it will take time before people are comfortable going back to those environments. And running is a sport that is accessible, and it's a sport that can also be incredibly safe, even in a world of social distancing. But we also, in addition to seeing people shifting from other activities, what we see is an increased interest in staying both physically fit, but also mentally fit. And I think that people who previously were not interested in running and were not particularly physically active have discovered the sport and have discovered the benefits of it. And I think this is why our purpose of Sound Mind, Sound Body is so incredibly relevant today, because it's not just about the physical benefit that you get from running, but it's about how it makes you feel. And I think that, the mental benefits of running have been well researched and well documented, but especially now when people have been feeling a great sense of confinement and have felt really restricted in their freedom, being able to go outside to run and feel mentally free is something that I think people not only are enjoying now, but will continue to enjoy in the future. So I do believe that this running boom is here to stay, and I think that that's good for our entire industry.
Well, as you say, and it's good for us in so many ways beyond the industry. As you say, the mental health benefit is such a profound one. I think that's just been, absolutely fascinating. Thank you ever so much for your time. It's a really positive message, and I think particularly that the sound mind backstory here, if you like, is such a positive message. So thanks ever so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you, and wishing you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary, and best of wishes to you as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.